Hey guys, Feuerrm here, and today I will not be testing the Koenigsegg Regera in multiplayer in Asphalt 9. Rather, HarshGupta has given me some races in his 6-star, nearly completely maxed one, with all upgrades and import parts applied except for a few epics. Many months ago I did a video about this car at 4 stars, which is what I still have it at. However, recently there was a season in which the two, well, really main cars were the Regera and the Huracan. Now there were a few other cars, but they were decidedly worse than these two, so most people who had one of these cars used one of them. Now, a lot of people actually end up using the Huracan instead of the Regera, and I can understand why some people would do that. It is easier to drive, and on newer tracks like Caribbean, which is what HarshGupta is on now, and the other new one, Osaka, I mean, the Huracan is probably going to do just as well as the Agera could on a lot of them, simply due to its much better agility for these very twisty tracks. However, HarshGupta does very well with the Regera in these races, and it is pretty much nearly maxed, as you could see. It's not as good as the Chiron, but it's better than cars like the Fenner and the Tryon, and it's actually pretty close to the Tryon, but still a bit better in my opinion. In this first race on the Caribbean, which was very, very close, he's racing another Regera, who is at almost exactly the same rank, just 40 below, I believe, and in this video are 8 of the best races that he had that were pretty close, so be sure to stick around to the end. So coming up to the end of this race here, the other Regera goes almost right in top of him as he pretty much disappears behind his red arrow on the map, but Gupta does manage to come in first place. This next race is against another Regera, about 170 rank lower, but still very high up in the rank. So currently there is another burst of speed sort of event going on with the Genti Aculone and the LaFerrari Aperta, which currently are the two top cars in Class A. Now, I would highly recommend to not actually spend tokens on these because, well, I think it is a token trap, and a lot of other people think that as well. Because, well, we have the Tegrals 1890 in the game that came in this update but was not actually released. However, we do know, since it has a key, that is most likely going to be another Drive Syndicate event, and while this one with the Rimac was not heavy on tokens, it only cost about 5,000, which is still a lot, but is nowhere near the 20,000 needed to get the Jesco. But what I'm trying to say is that that car will most likely be a new king of A-Class, if not the very best. It's going to be a very good competitor, so I would recommend holding on to your tokens, not buying those packs for the LaFerrari and the Aculone unless you are very close to maxing them, because the thing is, most likely we're not going to be able to max the Tech Rules 1890 in its event, so if one of those cars you have close to max, honestly, that might be a better way to go. And it's the 1896, not the 1890. My bad. One thing I will say is that that car looks pretty awesome. It looks to me like sort of a combination of the Tryon Nemesis sort of on the front and sides, and then the Bugatti Chiron on the back, but with a huge wing stuck on it. In this race, we're facing two Huracans, which are at 4109, so maxed. One of them is RPM mode, so somebody in my club. Now here Gupta knocks down the other one, and then touches mode while still being in 360 from being in the air, but then just gets slowed down instead of mode getting knocked down, which is nice in my opinion, but still a bit weird considering that in this game, if you touch somebody with 360, you're pretty much going to die. At least when I'm the one on the receiving end of the 360. Now, if I accidentally 360 and someone touches me, well, nothing usually happens. So as we can see in this race, while it seemed like the Regera was the clear choice to use in this season, in a lot of cases, like on Rome and probably Osaka and the Caribbean and other twisty tracks, the Huracan can really pull its own weight pretty well and do very well in them until the Regera gets to a top speed section of the track. And there, that is what he did, which allows him to pass the Huracan to come in first place at the very last second. I used the Regera most of the time in this season as well, and while most of the time it went pretty well, sometimes I would come across these very skilled Huracan drivers who I would really have to put up a very good fight up against, put my very best driving in as well. Now, I usually didn't use the Huracan because I felt that for me personally, I could win a higher percentage of races in the Regera, it being a better car overall, and I would still consider it better for multiplayer than the Huracan. But yeah, maybe I should have used the Huracan a little bit more, but it being an unlimited fuel season, I mean, I could use this one as much as I wanted to. Now, there was another car in this season that people could use, but that most people didn't because most people do not have it beyond 1 star. car. Honestly, most people don't have it, period. It is the McLaren Senna. There is one of those in this race, which is why I bring it up, but they were so rare that you will pretty much hardly ever see them in this video, and you probably hardly saw them if you played in this season. Now, they're not the car right behind us. That is a Regera, but after going through here, he then wrecks, putting him behind the Senna, which is a bit further back than that. So with a long straight stretch ahead of him, Gupta does come in first place. Now, in a previous video, I told you that I had gotten 100% through the Rimac special event with around 190,000 syndicate coins left, with which I was going to try to 4-star my ZR1. Now, I needed 30-something more blueprints than that, and I figured out I would need an average of like 4 blueprints in every 10 times pack I bought in order to 4-star the car. Well, the average is 3, and that's pretty much what I got. So alas, I am stuck with a 27 out of 36 for the 4-star on the ZR1. Oh well, at least I managed to 4-star the Feuerrm, which was really the main one that I wanted to do, and the one I would recommend trying to 4-star first if you do have syndicate coins left at the end of the event, or just simply don't think you're going to be able to get the Rimac, because it is a new king of Class D. Having said that, there is a hunt for the TVR Griffith going on right now, which is arguably the real king of Class D, and it probably is in some very pro players' hands and on some tracks, but I think the Feuerrm is probably going to be more suited to most people, or if you simply hate car hunts, like myself. Now, granted, they are better than spending thousands of tokens on a car, but my next semester of college starts very soon, and so I won't have as much time to do Asphalt 9 as I have, and probably not as much time to make videos either. Now, of course, I'm still going to do at least 2 videos a week, hopefully 3 on most, but you may see a slight decrease in activity, although I will try not to let that happen. This race against a Huracan on the Caribbean was close for a while, but Gupta managed to pull ahead by a good bit in the end. Now let's see how he does in Scotland against another Regera. Now, recently, people have been asking me when I'm going to make another best and worst cars in each class list. And I'm thinking I will probably do it after the next update's cars come, because I don't want to do it like every single update or something like that, because that would be way too many videos and just too many to keep up with. I think it's best if I do it every 4, 5, 6 months-ish, about every 3, 4 updates or something like that, because after the next update, presumably the 1896 will be out and we'll be able to see how that is in A class, because that's going to be a pretty important thing for people to know, and presumably we'll get a lot of other new cars as well. There's going to be quite a lot of new ones added to the list in this next one, I can already tell. So Gupta pulled quite far away from this other Agera throughout this race, but then takes a route not going up a ramp, and I think the other Regera does go up one of the ramps and manages to get actually quite close to him, close to the end of the race, and just keeps catching up and catching up and catching up. I'm not entirely sure how he did that, but Gupta does manage to stay in first and take the victory. Now, this next race here is a pretty rare one. So you remember what I was saying earlier about most people not having the Senna, and there was that one race with that one around 4,000 rank. Well, in this race, we've got one around 4370 rank, and as you can see, he does start up faster than Regera in the beginning. The Senna is overall a very well-rounded and agile car, but it really just doesn't have the speed to keep up with the Regera, and that is why throughout this section and throughout most of the race, you'll just see the Regera pull farther and farther ahead, or catch up closer and closer, but then you will also notice in the sections that are more twisty that the Senna might catch up a little bit, because of its much better handling. Currently in Asphalt 9, there is a secondary season going on, which is a Zenvo Max Unlimited Fuel event, or whatever you want to call it. Now, the interesting thing about this, and why I probably will not be making a video about that, is because, well, there was already a season a while back, right before the Zenvo special event, in which everyone got to drive a free try Max Zenvo, just like we are here. Now, it wasn't unlimited fuel, but I already made a video about the card's 6 star, so there's not really much of a reason for me to make it again. And I didn't get anywhere close to top 1 either, so yeah, not much point in doing one of that. And here Gupta does beat the McLaren Senna, even on a track that, while not being the most twisty, still has a lot of turny sections where the Senna's better handling could have come into play. And for our final race, we have a battle against a Huracan and a Senna. So I have now made videos about every one of the new cars that came out in the Rimac update, except for, well, the Rimac, and I do plan to do that once I get to Legend League, so either late this week or early next week, most likely. I would really like to drive it in a more skill-based season, and there were 1 or 2 of those recently where you could drive it, but most people did not have it at that time. I think it might have been actually this season, because I kind of remember driving against them in my Regera. But I did not have it at that time, so we'll have to settle for Legend League in Rush Season for now. Now, I have it at 3 stars, so not the most amazing performance out of it, but it is still pretty good. I'm looking forward to testing it. So now it is time for my general review of this car. It is currently still the second fastest car in the game, just behind the Jesco. Its nitro efficiency, acceleration, handling are not really all that great, any of them, leading it to not be an especially fun car to drive, compared to cars like the Rimac Sheeran or Jesco. But I would say it is the 4th best car in the game next to those. Thank you all for watching. Thanks to HarshGupta for these races. Please like the video if you have enjoyed, and consider subscribing for more Asphalt and other games content, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye!